back, boys and ghouls, to my house of horrors, my castle of hassles, my apartment of anxieties. They're only going to get worse. My timeshare of frights and scares, my domicile of revile, my haunted house. What the fuck was that? But what's scarier than all these things put together is the fact that Halloween still isn't on a Saturday. Guys, let's just take over the calendar factory. Welp, the doctor said I'm ghoul deficient, so we're doing Halloween again this year. I don't have a point this time, I just have 5 scary games I want to talk about. Or in some cases, don't. Stick around until the end, I got a scary picture to show ya. So, Garden of Bam Bam. It's really bad. I don't like it. Actually, while I have you here, have you heard about Slave Zero X? Oh man, it's an upcoming hack and slash game based on this super old Dreamcast and PC game, but it looks incredible. It's kind of like a Guilty Gear beat 'em up because the controls are the exact same as if it was a fighting game. It's got combos, launchers, supers, everything. The demo is out now and it's so much fun. I played through it 3 times already. You've got to pick it up. All right. Warden of Flim Flam. Yeah, it's got lore, but if you're into Garden of Ban Ban lore, I don't think you're into the story. I just think the thrill of lore gets you up in the morning. I don't care that I'm in a car with Opila Bird. Actually, while I have you here, have you seen how good Battlecore Robots looks? Yeah, imagine not having to take out a mortgage just to play custom Robo. This is such addictive fun. The battling is fast-paced and hard-hitting, it's got a story mode and versus mode, and supports up to 4 players at the same time. The demo for this one is out too, and I can't recommend it enough if you're on a call with friends or just looking for something to do with them. This game is a must. Alright. Robert of Van Dam. It's just not remarkable in any way. Any other indie horror game will give you what this one has, but better. All that makes it notable is how bad it is, and even then, that joke stopped being funny a while ago. Actually, while I have you here, have you checked out Dodgeball Academia? It's this super colorful RPG where, instead of a standard battle system, you play dodgeball. The art style makes it feel like a playable cartoon, and even though I'm only an hour in, I'm really excited to play more. This feels like the number 3 pick on a top 10 list of the best obscure 3DS games. I don't know what that means, but I know it's a positive. Alright. Arvin of Bad Dad. Yeah, all 4 of them suck, and pretty soon all 6 of them are going to suck, and they scam kids. What more do you want? But don't dox people! That's still way worse than the alternative of a bad game, doxing, and death threats. Don't do that. Of all the games I played for the Halloween season, I think Amanda was the biggest shock when it came to quality. I'll be honest and say, I didn't have the highest expectations going in, but after playing, I can't believe how wrong I was. Amanda sees you playing as Riley, who just inherited her Aunt Kate's house after she died under mysterious circumstances. She did thankfully remind me how to walk before she died. Kate's always looking out for me like that. Going up into her attic, we find a tape she left for us of an old children's show named Amanda the Adventurer. Popping it into our TV, and we get an episode all about the wonders of making pie. We also get to meet our main characters, Amanda and Wooly.
What's your favorite kind of pie?
Pumpkin is a 6-letter word, right? Damn it. This is the main gameplay during the tape sections. Amanda asks you a question, you answer. A lot of them don't really matter, while others...
Wait, what did you say? How do you...
matter a lot. Amanda's got a knife, oh god. She doesn't seem very concerned with safety, but manages to cut up the apples in no time flat. After that, we just have to find the sugar, then put the apple pie in the oven for 40 minutes. This is what killed my aunt? So, we seem to be all done with the tape when... Dang it, kids are always leaving their stoves out. This is where the real fun of Amanda starts. The tapes that you watch will give you clues on how you're supposed to progress in the real world. In this case, we follow the pie recipe that Amanda gave us for 425 degrees at 40 minutes, and I think I forgot an ingredient. Should I have left it in longer? I really enjoy how this system works. It gets you to actively watch for smaller details in the tapes themselves and keeps you engaged. Nothing too big just yet, but it's going to get a lot more complicated later down the road. Tape 2 takes us to the neighborhood. Rough part of town. We're trying to send a gift for Amanda's friend's birthday party. First is get a card, then a treat, then we send it off. Getting the card goes well, getting the treat doesn't. Time to send it off, and Amanda draws a blank on the name of her best friend in the world. Through pure skill, I stumble bass-ackwards into the right answer by using the only name in the game that I know. Amanda would never love a freak like me with 5 letters in their name. Now, it wasn't the most obvious what we should have been looking out for this time, but the piano behind us gives us a hint as to what we need to look out for. All of the stores back on the main street had one letter of their name capitalized, and those correlate to the different keys on a keyboard. We get our next tape, and Wooly the Fool breaks his own knee in an accident. I tried to call the police on Wooly for being such a klutz, and after God refused to intervene, the doctor was who we ended up seeing. Oh, good thing we got here just in time. The other office is just closed. Something tells me Wooly's gonna be just fine, so we leave him alone with Amanda while we go to solve our next problem. I had an inkling on what the puzzle would be, but I decided to watch the tape back again to figure out exactly what was going on, which is helped by the fast forward button letting you skip past all of Wooly's belly aching. There were 3 different clocks in the episode, and now we have to set the 3 clocks in the attic to the same times as the episode. Set all 3, and you don't just get a tape, but the combination to one of the 30 safes your aunt keeps in her attic. This should not help at all. Our final tape has us join Wooly and Amanda at a picnic. Wooly has a little piss and moan over a bad smell, which it turns out is coming from this moldy sandwich someone brought Wooly. That leads perfectly into our lesson for today. Everyone rots. We come across a crime scene with just an absurd amount of evidence, and this was when I was dead certain there'd be a secret option to click on Amanda, but once again the game has outthought me.
Sometimes I feel myself rotting, but it feels far away.
Amanda, nothing is rotten here.
Wooly, we saw like 25 rotting things today. What do you want from me? I try to answer her question of if everything rots honestly, but the game doesn't seem to like it when I do that. After faking an answer, we get attacked by this big monster. And that's it. End of the game. See you next time, folks. Now, that's just one of several endings, and you'd think this big monster would be involved in at least one more. Nope, considering how the rest of the endings play out, this is essentially a non sequitur. The monster was made to give YouTubers something to put in the thumbnail. Think of the little guy. We start up a new game, and it's time to do a few things differently. While we're between tapes, though, I want to mention the atmosphere. The attic is fairly creepy on its own, cramped and full of stuff, and pretty much every notable object is used at some point for a puzzle. The storm outside and the scant lighting sources give it this weird sense of nostalgia, like I've definitely been somewhere just like this before. The tapes, though, they are well made and get the vibe of a kids show down pat, but I wish they didn't dive into the full-on horror as quickly as they do. One of my biggest pet peeves with viral horror is when the game jumps the gun on introducing the scary stuff. Shoutouts to Andy's Apple Farm for breaking the land speed record on how fast it gives up on pretending this isn't a horror game. Since we managed to get the safe combination in the last playthrough, and it's actually here this time, we can open it up and find the key to solving everything. The pause button. Reattach that to our TV, and now we can pause the episodes while we watch. I didn't get it at first, until I saw this in the background. It was there the first time, but my eyes just glazed over it. Now is when the game really gets going. The answer to how to find all the secrets in this game based on tapes being a pause button is an awesome way of integrating the theme with the gameplay. In a game like Poppy's, they never did a good job integrating the Toy Factory theme with anything you do. I'm still waiting for my electrical pylon plush. This, meanwhile, is perfect for a tape-based horror game. So now we've got a meat pie recipe. Potatoes, mushrooms, and meat. Mushrooms easy enough, we got them growing out of the wall. Potato needs us to plant this pot under this dripping water, and for meat... So, we know a rat can cook, but can a rat be cooked? Sticking all of our ingredients into the oven for 50 minutes at 525 gives us a brand new version of the second tape. There's a brand new store and brand new chalk outlines in this version. This time around, it's actually Wooly the Liar's birthday, and we need to pick something out for him. We grab a birthday card, then head off to grab some jeez Louise! Whose fault is all this? Wooly!
Oh, Wooly, it's your birthday!
No! Don't reward bad behavior! Now, we could move on to the next puzzle, but this musical arrangement in the card store caught my eye. So I went to go play the piano. I can't read sheet music. I looked up how to read sheet music. It was of little help. I looked up the piano support hotline. Turns out it's not real. I eventually found my answer at whatisthepianopuzzleinAmandatheAdventurer.com. Always the last place you look. Playing out the notes, which spell out facade, gives us an orange tape with cutting-edge graphics. These differently colored tapes are hidden all over the attic and have those sweet nuggets of lore hidden throughout. Can the FTC just please classify lore as a hard drug so we can outlaw it? Amanda does fine with it though, it's pretty straightforward with what it wants to say. Except for that monster. Because what was that? It's worth watching just to see this man's powerful moustache. Now that's a moustache we should all aspire towards. The next puzzle has us coloring in pictures in the order of where we went, where we tried to go, and where we ended up going. Repeat this a few times with worse scribbles each time, and we'll get the combination to a safe, a clue on what to do with this doll, and her favorite color. Well, that's fine. Let's just go get the flower, son of a bitch. Alright, that leads dead. Let's go try to figure out the other half. The combination to this locked box over here is guts, and by opening it up, we get our next tape and get to go on a visit to the zoo. With Wooly, though, it gets a bit awkward.
It's fun to spend time with animals. They are very different from people. They look different, and they don't talk like people.
Amanda, I'm an animal, and
Animals don't talk, silly.
Even then, it's not an easy visit. Wooly starts to forget how to speak, the pigs get a bit too gung-ho, and this barn is going absolutely insane. He is zoinked. He is off his gourd. He is not on the same planet as you and I right now. He's getting angrier. Hey, was this episode taped during the apocalypse? While going through the normal route, Wooly ends up regressing all the way into being a sheep, and that leaves Amanda to talk more about family. Hey, we all hate it when our moms do that. To get past this one, we're going to have to pause the screen while the weather warnings are up and then spin the wheel behind us. Busting it open gives us a new copy of Everybody Rots. Not sure how much more messed up this one could get, but I'm excited to see. Everything Rots isn't too much different in terms of content, it's just a lot glitchier up until we visit Mr. Fox's final resting place. Now the cat from the last tape is stuck in there, saying we should help it, and the door behind us opens. What? So we're 2 for 2 in terms of endings. I can't understand for the life of me, but we're making progress. This should be our final run through, as now we have everything to succeed. We don't even need to open the safe, everything's already set up for us. Our first step is to grow a new flower for the doll, and she gives us the blue tape. I hate blue. We still don't have enough of these tapes to glean anything really understandable, but I think it's safe to assume maybe Amanda isn't just a cartoon. After removing the batteries, all children have, we're able to plug them into Blabbot, who is the most important part of this leg of the journey. You can punch codes into Blabbot for different messages to help solve puzzles, but you need to pause while the code is on screen or else it won't work. The first code can be found in the neighborhood tape, but before we go there, we can find a peach to make Wooly the Liar's stupid peach pie, which gives us the red tape. This one recounts how the creator of Amanda the Adventurer went missing missing under mysterious circumstances, and how it used to be a live-action show before costs got too high. The company behind the show calls Sam's disappearance abandonment and are currently keeping Amanda in their offices. Then Zip and Chip show up. What the hell is that? Anyway, back with the neighborhood tape, we can punch in the price of Blabot in order to get a message to send my condolences to Kate, which may break the tape, but hey! Cake! Here you have to put in a new code to get a card, to get a candle, to get math. This is the worst birthday I've had all year. Adding the final candle gets us the new accident tape. Wooly was able to avoid the accident this time, but Amanda isn't letting him off so easy.
Lily's head is broken, but Dr. Amanda is here to help. Let's prepare the patient. Here, Willie, drink this.
I don't know, Amanda.
It's all just pretend, isn't it, Willie?
Amanda, I feel,
We need to operate immediately on the patient's brain.
Well, you have to work a lot harder to kill somebody with forceps than you do with a hammer or saw, so here's your best shot, Wooly. After Wooly gets killed, we get one last tape that's talking directly at us. This one has you counting up all the different things in the attic, like mushrooms, chairs, and lights, as the final combination for the lock on this cupboard. Put those lessons in counting to good use, and you'll have the combo and your reward.
This is a bucket.
Dear God.
There's more.
No.
Blabot's brave sacrifice is worth it in the end as we get our hands on the key to the trunk in the back of the attic, and now have two options for the tape to play next. The one in the cupboard is a code to punch into Blabot, but he's indisposed, and then there's the trunk tape. Amanda asks to share a secret, we suppress our survival instincts and agree.
They can share secrets. Can I share a secret with you?
Yes.
Are you sure? It's a big secret.
Yep.
Is it really okay to share my secret with you?
Yeah. Ah! Quick! Change the channel! I did it. Now, there are more tapes to find and an alternate version of this ending, but I can't do all the heavy lifting. Go find it yourself. And I recommend you do! Amanda the Adventurer looked on the outside, to me, like it was set to follow the formula so many other games already have. Come to find out, though, it's not just another viral horror game, it's at the front of the class. I love how it uses the theme in interesting ways. Swapping tapes, pausing to look for secrets, really makes you pore over each frame for details. Its setting is intimate and unnerving, the soundscape is really effective, and while it's not jump out of my seat scary, I could see it really sticking with its intended audience of younger players. When I think of exceptional viral horror games, Amanda is now gonna be right near the top. Nah, what the hell, I'll tell you a bit about the lore. So it all starts in 1984 when Amanda... What a shocking waste of a game. Now, I've already tangled with Bendy and the Ink Machine last year, and when the Dark Revival was announced, not soon after I was finished talking about it, I was less than excited. I didn't like the first game by any stretch of the imagination, and the company behind it, Joey Drew Studios, sucks. First off, they invented a heartless monster, then named their studio after him. Truly a confusing case of cart meets horse. Then there was all the scuttlebutt around Mike Mood and how he was an absolutely horrible boss who dealt in nepotism hires and flaunting his wealth, but failed at giving people severance and not firing them en masse during Christmas. I mean, none of that changed. In fact, the most that had changed was that they had to patch into the credits that Mike worked on the game, and that he added a frankly pathetic poem to the game's files about how people hate him for no reason. But there's a new game out, so whatever. Dark Revival is the result of a 3-year development cycle, and to the game's credit, you can see all the development time on the screen. Presentation-wise, Joey Drew nailed it. The game is absolutely gorgeous from a visual standpoint, building on the atmosphere of the original game in an amazing way. Locations feel a lot more grand than an ink machine, where what was mostly stuffy and cramped office buildings is now replaced with a greater variety of far more open areas, unique locales, and interesting set pieces. With how this expands the universe of Bendy and the Ink Machine, I feel they did a really good job, at least making the game look like there's a lot more to it. The game starts with us playing as Audrey, an employee at Archgate Films, the new company who owns Bendy after Joey Drew kicked the bucket. She's working a long night on some animation when she feels the need to stay up and keep working.
No way I'm getting through tonight without some coffee. Probably some downstairs.
Oh yeah, that sounds good. I'll be right back. That was a fun coffee adventure. Turns out I don't like coffee. All right, back to the... Joey Drew, you outdone yourself. This is way better than last time. Joke endings aside, you go to get some coffee when you find out that you're locked in for the night. But that's fine, you have your own keys back at your desk. It took until the end of the first hallway for the game to poke a hole in my goodwill bucket. My biggest complaint in the first game was how much of it felt like it was just meant to waste time. Never actually giving you anything to do, just having you walk back and forth to do the same task over and over and over. Start as you mean to go on! Luckily, once we make it to the elevator, the game shows off that it's doing horror a bit more subtly this time.
Audrey.
Wilson? You scared me to death.
I'm sorry, my dear. Didn't mean to frighten you. You're working late tonight. A pretty girl like you shouldn't be wandering around all by yourself.
Wilson, what the hell are you doing? In a game all about killer cartoons, this guy is easily the goofiest character in the entire thing. Fresh off his side job as the guy in a Goosebumps episode that a group of kids finds out is actually really nice after they break into his house looking for their missing dog, Wilson is more than happy to guide Audrey down to the power generator. Audrey is similarly enchanted. We follow him to the generator to get the power working again and have to do the same first puzzle from the last game. We get the load-bearing plush back in place when Wilson turns back on the ink machine. He plunges us in and we wake up in the Druniverse, just as yellow as when we last left it. We make our way through slowly but surely, getting a grasp on our controls like how to climb, crouch, and, thank God, run. I mean it, the ability to get this done and over with quicker is a massive improvement over Ink Machine. We get our first encounter with an enemy, and after waiting him out, we get a visit from Alice Angel. I don't think I thought about this too much. Why is she a regular human woman while Boris is a dog man? She dumps just a bucket of information on you about searchers and pipers and wolves and ink demons, and Audrey isn't retaining a drop of it. From here, we have our mission. If we want to get out of here, we have to get to the top level. On our way out, we find a container of thick ink, and in her infinite wisdom, Audrey punches it as hard as she can. I'm glad she knew that was a good idea. These upgrade your base stats, like health and stamina, or in my case, just stamina, because it means I can run more. We're finally into the first section where the game trusts us enough to make a choice, and we've got to get a gent pipe that we can use to break these locks. Not this pipe, though. This pipe's a real piece of shit. So to get to the gent pipe, we have to pass through the atrium, but we can't get to the atrium because the lights are out, so we have to go turn the power back on, but we can't turn the power back on since we need a fuse, so we have to run to the other side of the map to get the fuse from the kitchen, where all good fuses are. Oh boy, the exact sort of gameplay I was missing from the last game. To get that, you need this, but to get this, you need those, and those just aren't very fun to get. The game also throws the main enemy type at you, Lost Ones. Here we can see one enjoying the 10 or so minutes before he stops being a threat. He can't see me right now. We grab the fuse, install it, grab the gent pipe, and the game changes genres. Now it's a hack and slash.
Don't get so cocky. Now I'm a little motivated. This may be fun. Rest in peace.
I just killed 4 enemies at once in a survival horror game. I don't blame them for adding a tool like this. I've seen what the game is like without it. Not preferable, but the game makes getting past enemies way too easy. If the gent pipe wasn't enough, hiding is way too strong. Just like the last game, you become completely invincible if you duck into a locker or a closet while being chased by an enemy. This is already way too good, since there are just bits dotted all around the map where enemies pretty much don't matter. But in this game, they made it even stronger. Most enemies teleport back to wherever they were before you started the chase, and it creates a load of distance. Then there are the Butcher Gang enemies, like the Piper and the Spider, who just despawn altogether if you manage to give them the slip. Nothing says fearing for your life like areas where nothing bad can happen to you. Baby, I wasn't talking about you, you're different! So, we've got our gent pipe, and use that to break the lock so we can advance forward. After having a nice chat with the floor, we get the ability to banish enemies, which means we can sneak up on them to destroy them instantly and regain health. In a game where stealth works, that might actually be a really useful ability. I would love to see that implemented. I barely ever used it in the whole game, cause I was kinda certain it was a moral choice thing. Like, you get an easy way to deal with enemies, but they'll spit in your food at the drive-thru if you do it. Especially after the message, "You don't have to kill us," but no, if you do it, it's gotta be the right thing. That's all on top of, why would I sneak in the first place? The way forward has been blocked off by this hole in the ground, so we're gonna need to find a new way around, and that takes us into the main studio. It's down here we find a little Bendy! Aww. I'm gonna try it. I have no more interest in playing this game. Our ink powers accidentally shock Bendy, which sends him off running and leaves us alone again. Our new path forward is a lot like the last one, cause it's blocked. Audrey resists the urge to cave his skull in and decides to play along for some reason. This section introduces the vents, and oh my God! This is just padding! Small, narrow environments with nothing interesting in them that you move through at a snail's pace. Never once in the entire game does anything interesting happen in a vent, so it's literally just to waste your time! Before we have to go through any more, though, the Ink Demon finally shows back up and can't get the lead out to try to catch someone who's 10 feet in front of him.
His power is infinite. His evil is complete.
I just closed the door in his face. This is the gallery with all the art we need, and while we try to grab it, the Ink Demon suddenly strikes! Or rather, he gives us a good few seconds to find a hiding spot, in which case he just gives up. Why is the Master of Evil so bad with follow-through? Mr. X, Nemesis, Dimitrescu, what they were all missing was a way to just make them go away whenever you want. You hide in a closet, he burps and gives up the ghost. There has to be a more interesting way to deal with this. By making him so easy to get away from, you don't make a threatening villain that you're always afraid is gonna pop up. You make an annoyance that just shows up, makes you run away for a couple seconds, hide in a closet, and then he's gone.
You shall be consumed by the ink and made one with, oh God fucking damn it, you're not even that deep in.
But what if he does catch you? You might be too far away and he's able to catch you out in the open. Well, in that case, nothing really happens. See, in Ink Machine, save spots were limited by these punch card stations, made the threat of death a lot scarier since you stand to lose a lot more progress with fixed checkpoints. Dark Revival does away with that and instead lets you save whenever you want with no limits. In one move, Dark Revival completely destroys any chance of this game being challenging, much less scary. Sure, there are enemies around every corner wanting to kill ya, and all you have is a pipe, but why try to be stealthy? Why try to plan out a route? You have infinite tries to brute force your way through and get the answer, whether or not it's how the game wants you to play. Heck, when you get killed by a standard enemy, you just respawn a few feet away in an ink fountain, with the only penalty being half your health. This isn't hard, it's not interesting, and it certainly isn't fun. We get back the pages, we get back to the door, and do what we should have done from the beginning and beat the stuffing out of the lost one. Ah, look at me on the cover of Definitely Didn't Just Waste a Bunch of Time magazine. We get another puzzle to line up film reels to reveal the combo to a lock, but the real attraction to this part is a chance to actively make the game worse. See, the evil gang of the Piper, the Spider, and the one I forgot about has a fourth member. If you open up the box she's stuck in, she'll pop in at random points of the game, take off a chunk of health, then disappear. But you can also just ignore the box, and she never appears for the entire game. So what's the point? Your reward for going off of the beaten path is making the game way shittier. It's the cheapest kind of jump scare, just a loud noise you can't see coming. You go a bit further and find another talking lost one, this one with the ability to teleport. Why can some lost ones talk and have special abilities? Who cares? We have to slowly lower a bridge to get across, and when we do, he manages to get himself stuck in a pipe that we have to banish. He thanks us by giving us a teleport. Now we can dash forward for a brief second. This is the only gas station plasmid I used frequently because it lets you get through vents quicker. We can use it to get across the pit that we couldn't before, but the door in front of us is locked, and the only way to unlock it is to use an upgraded gent pipe. Yeah, the game is holding us hostage and swinging an axe, threatening to introduce crafting elements. There are parts you can find all over the place, like gent parts and gears that you can use to upgrade your pipe. The only time you have to upgrade your pipe is right now. The rest are completely optional upgrades that help you deal more damage. You'd think with all the parts lying around that crafting would be an integral element to the game, but you can miss 2 of the instances of crafting. And there are only 3! You even get all the parts to upgrade it in the room you find the schematics. What's the point? So, we upgrade our pipe to hold a charge that lets us unlock doors, and when we get on our way, surprise! A horde of ink demons. Just ignore them. We finally made it to the elevator. Imagine how fun it will be when I can say that. No, instead you have to go to the living quarters and find a new way up from there. As you step into the main part of the room, you get bum rushed by about 5 lost ones, which leaves you with only 1 hit left before death. At first, I thought this was a neat idea for a section. You're supposed to be sneaky, plan out your movements, and warp at the right times to survive against all the enemies since you're inching towards death. There's a machine that refills all of your health for basically nothing a few feet to the left. Well, f me and my wanting things. Who do I think I am? We warp into this room to grab a set of keys we can use to move forward, but on the return... Holy smokes! Just gotta warp back into this room. Just gotta jump into the ink demon's arms. Alright, second try, and we get in. The elevator we try to ride up breaks and ends up plunging us into the depths of the studio for a boss fight. Here you have to battle against this giant spider. What is happening? What is this? Why is it here? Where am I? The boss comes and goes without answering a single question. And aside from a few more of these little sacks outside the boss arena, this isn't an intro to a new enemy type. This is just a random boss fight thrown in for no reason. Down the hall, and we meet up with... Joey Drew. Don't worry, I checked. Joey is like an angel of death for this game. When he shows up, he decides to sit you down and drop minutes-long lore dumps on you. It overcorrects way too hard from having the whole story play out in cassette tapes, and now just funnels information to you like it's on a time limit. In this conversation alone, you learn that the Druniverse exists in parallel to the real world, but isn't bound by time, works on a loop system that resets whenever the ink demon is killed, and is falling apart due to too many resets. Listen, you either get barely any story or more story than you could ever care about. Pick one! After taking everything in his house, we head off to do an aggressively unfun sewer puzzle. Raise and lower the ink levels to get through this door and meet up with Lord Amok. There's probably a deathly boring audio log somewhere that explains this, but killing him seems to turn out well. We hop over a few more things and end up back with Bendy. Is he a fun and useful partner? Is it opposite day? To get to the next part, you have to find a key card to let yourself in, and instead of being able to search around on your own, you can only check spots that Baby Bendy points out first. I don't care if I hurt his feelings, I want to get this over with! This is when I finally realized that this game has no more respect for not wasting time than the last game did. Between the vents, the backtracking, and now sections like this, it has this illusion of a grandiose length that shrinks down to nothing if you take out all the bits where the game forces you to slow down for no reason. You get a built-in stress toy of beating Bendy in the noggin, and it makes a spinning noise, but the only thing I'm spinning is my wheels. We finally find the piece of paper that tells us where we can get a key card and warp our way up to find it. Before you can grab it though, Joey Drew comes in and lays the thickest lore dump he can. He sits you down and makes you watch a PowerPoint about it. In summary, Joey Drew used the ink machine because he hates Henry Stein, so he created an alternate dimension and a clone of Henry to torture for all eternity. How in the fuck does that happen? Doesn't matter, Joey finally talked to a pretty lady, and this makes his hate boner subside long enough to give Henry a pretty lady of his own. Now that he's created a life, he invents a daughter for himself, and Audrey is that daughter. So you're not just playing as some random schmuck, the best type of horror protagonist, you are, without exaggeration, Joey Drew's OC. Fine. I get that I should be shocked and excited to learn these revelations, but Joey Drew only existed in audio log and note form before our last conversation, and Audrey... Man, I don't care about Audrey. She's just the person I'm playing as. She has a few quips that give me Ethan Winter vibes, but other than that, I don't care about either of these people, and the game never really gives me a reason to. Heck, if you read and listen to all the messages, this should be a sad occasion. My dad's a huge piece of shit. We take the key card to the Gent building where we get a second shocking twist. Bendy is the ink demon. Speaking of not caring, I've only been with baby Bendy for a few minutes and only saw him a few more times before that. Plus, it's not as big of a revelation as you think to tell me that the ink demon is the ink demon. Didn't we already find that out in the last game? Getting inside and the building is overrun with this brand new enemy type, the Keepers. At first, I got excited. The design is pretty neat, and I thought the no eyes meant they'd go based on sound and require stealth to get around. It's the exact same thing as the rest of the game. While you're running around, you may also find this guy. I'm not joking. Who is this? What is this? I only found out this thing's name on the wiki. There's a side quest tied to this guy. You can get killed by this guy, and I had no idea because the game never tells you. By the way, his name is Steve McGregor. The way out is locked off, and only this lost one can open it for you. But she isn't gonna help us unless we play hide and seek with her. Audrey, the fucking doormat that she is, goes along with it, and you have to run back and find where she's hiding. Fun. We find her and get to find the ink version of Henry Stein. Is it the same Henry that we got to play as in the last game? I don't give a shit! If he is, that's pretty funny that Joey made a copy of his old friend to torture and then lost to the fake version. As we finally threaten to make more progress, a keeper pops out of the ground and drags us kicking and screaming to the final chapter. Kill! 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 Audrey suppresses her killer instinct long enough to listen to Wilson talk about how he wants to become a god using ink demons to take over this world and the real world. Audrey's got smoke pouring out of her ears as her brain breaks, and she doesn't shove the gent pipe directly up his asshole. Her brain is so broken, in fact, she agrees to stay at Wilson's mansion he made for himself, complete with creepy faceless maid. We lose our pipe and ink powers on the way inside, as now our tasks include following the maid for what feels like forever, finding out what Gilson is, playing a song to put a fish to sleep, and then not needing to do any of that because the maid just comes and gives you some Gilson. Whew! Thanks, game! Those 5 minutes of mine you wasted could have been the 5 minutes I spent choking to death. While drinking the sleeping potion Wilson wants us to take, not questioning why he knows how to make a sleeping potion, fake Alice Angel from the last game shows up and kidnaps us. She has us dead to rights, trapped, alone, no weapons, no powers, and wants to flay us alive to make herself beautiful again, so she gives us a chance to escape. I may want you dead, but I've been working on this assignment for my 5th grade literature class. Mind testing it out? You have to go around the table and talk to the lost ones she has tied up to get pieces of information about seating arrangements. This person will sit next to this person, but not that person. You know the ones. Once you get all the info, you go above the table, punch in what you think is the right arrangement, then sit back in the chair. If you get it wrong, she shocks you. If you get it right, her plan falls apart. I had to think a little more than usual, but at the end of the day, it was still boring, pointless fluff. It doesn't even make any sense why you'd get to earn a shot at freedom. Alice is crazy. Why did she set up an elaborate death game with a fail state for her? You put that bastard Mr. Bear in his place and Alice disappears. She decides that the main problem with her plan was letting you live and decides to do things right by shooting you with a Tommy gun. Pinstripe Portaroo. After getting right up next to her, something, don't ask what, pushes you two off the platform and real fake Alice comes in to save you by stabbing fake Alice in the back. Kinda like the last game. It's parts like this that made me think that the whole reason to introduce the idea that this world is a cycle was just to bring back all the stuff that people liked from Ink Machine so they didn't have to make anything new for this game. It feels more like a remake than a real follow-up to Ink Machine in any regard. Boris also shows up, and with that sour mug and lack of screen time, you know he's just here for the paycheck.
Well, from now on, I'm gonna call you something other than Alice. It just doesn't suit you.
Oh? What do you have in mind?
How about Allison?
Oh, that's not that different. Audrey starts getting really defensive when Alice starts talking about how Wilson is a dickhead who shouldn't be trusted. The guy who kidnapped us, the guy who sicked ink monsters on us, the guy who killed us. Well, just hear him out. After that is a stupid long section of sneaking back behind keepers, setting up music boxes, disabling electrical towers. It's all very boring. We finally make it back and head down to Wilson's lab for the first bit of story progression in 4 hours, and behind this door, the game will fall apart. Behind this door is some of the most heinously stupid things you've ever seen. Just adjust your expectations. Wilson finally starts to explain what his goal really is. He wants to capture and get rid of the Ink Demon as the catalyst for the cycle. Instead, he'll make his own monster that he can control. This is his idea.
Isn't he beautiful? Simple but elegant. A treasure. Powerful beyond anyone.
And you're not supposed to laugh at this. He then reveals what Audrey's here for. He wants to throw her into the meat grinder to use her soul to stabilize the silly sailor monster. Audrey brings up how this 100-year-old man just wanted to help his dad when he reveals he was lying. He hates his dad. And his dad? Nathan Arch. It turns out he hates his dad since he never paid attention to him when he was younger, and now he wants to take revenge by taking over the Ink world, where his dad is not. Before how stupid that is can really sink in, he starts to drag Audrey to the grinder back first! Not killing him now would just mean someone else would do it later, so we might as well rip off the band-aid. And his skin. Down the hall is the final boss fight with Wilson, who merged with his sailor boy to make this. It's a really unfun fight, but after smacking him in the face a few times, the fight ends. He rips off our legs, and the Ink Demon comes back in to save us. It's not because he likes us or anything, but because he wants to eat us so he can get stronger himself. Joey Drew gets caught in the crossfires and starts saying whatever he has to so you don't break him in half like a toothpick. Doesn't work. All this because I wanted coffee. We end up getting told we've been cornered because we've just spent the past couple of minutes smashing through walls when Alice Angel comes in to save the day. Why do we need saving? Boris also comes in riding Steve McGregor, and it only gets dumber from here. The game ends with this weird Avengers-style everyone's here to help ending, but that doesn't really work when I don't care about anybody. The guy who taught you how to teleport is here. The hide-and-seek lady is here. Even Sammy Lawrence is here. Remember? The guy from the last game who hasn't been in a second of this one? So yeah, he gets shot. We put the end film reel into the projector and shoot ourselves in the face. This sends Audrey and Bendy back to the real world, and the game just kinda ends. This was awful. I heard from so many people that Dark Revival was a much better game than Ink Machine, But it's just not! At the very best, I would call it a side grade to Ink Machine. It does some stuff better, but some stuff even worse. There's even more waiting, more time wasting, more sections just walking back and forth. The game may look better, but nothing has really fundamentally changed. It retreads the same ground that the last game did, is abysmally unfun to play, and left me with the same awful impression that the last one did. It's like a big parade float. It looks impressive on the outside, but on the inside, it's just hot air. But this is a sequel. It's supposed to improve on the original, but it just doesn't. Above all else, it's just boring. It's not scary or intense or atmospheric. It's boring. I was floored by the end of my playthrough at how thoroughly unenjoyable this game is. On the opposite side of the spectrum is maybe the best mascot horror game you can buy right now. My Friendly Neighborhood starts out with our regularly scheduled fat guy eating a burger getting interrupted by this years-old defunct puppet show. We start out by picking our difficulty, and if Dark Revival has taught me anything, it's how to survive. We play as Gordon, the repairman sent to go disable the tower at the broadcast studio that's broadcasting the old puppet show. We head inside to try to find out what's happening when we meet Ricky. This guy sounds like he has a lot of experience with puppets. A sock puppet comes out to meet him at the desk, and he has no questions. As long as the money isn't felt too, we'll be fine. Ricky is a bit less than helpful when it comes to getting us up to the roof, but hacks up a keycard for us to use. We head outside to find somewhere to use it when we see somebody run into the studio. Move in even closer.
Hey y'all, I'm Norman. I'm a really normal guy. Is anyone there? Show up to be a friendly face in the background.
Might be best to leave him alone. This is just one of the dozens of puppets crawling around this place, and sticking around is a surefire way to find out what the inside of a casket looks like. Fleeing deeper into the studio nets us some items, like tape and a wrench, both of which are exactly what I need for wrenching and taping up puppets. The wrench is old reliable. No need to aim, no need to worry about ammo, no need to worry about getting bored, because you can flip it like this. The tape is what we can use after taking out an enemy. Do that and they won't respawn when you leave the room. Leave an enemy untaped though, and they'll come back over and over again, needing you to waste resources or take damage if you want to get past. We can also find a safe room that has save spots for us, but at a cost. If you want to save your game, you're gonna have to pay for it. 1 coin per save. If all of this is starting to sound a bit familiar, you figured out what makes My Friendly Neighborhood so different. As opposed to most other indie horror games whose roots can be traced back to Amnesia or Slender, My Friendly Neighborhood takes cues from old Resident Evil games. It goes all the way down to having to sort your weapons in your handy-dandy suitcase. Well, the runtime just ballooned by a few hours. I've got a lot of sorting to do. Heading back through the door the game was begging me to try first, and we find our first gun, the stenographer. It fires letters at the puppets, and even though it's got range on the wrench, it chews through ammo like crazy. Most of the time, it takes just as many letters to take out a puppet as it does wrench swings. If you want to stay alive, your best bet is to try to avoid combat as much as you can. If you can run past an enemy, do it, because it's not certain you'll be able to defend yourself when the next one shows up. Attacking the puppets also has a chance to put them in this dazed state, so don't think that encountering an enemy means that you have to waste all your time taking them out permanently. Armed with knowledge, and more importantly, a gun, we can move deeper into the studio and into our first set. This massive city block is home to just about every standard enemy and Pearl, a big bird, no relation, who's gone blind. This place is one giant interconnected web of puzzles that interact with each other, like these boxes that will only open up when you adjust the pizza clock down in one of these shops. The key is to collect all of the different blocks and use them to spell out neighborhood, so you're gonna be ducking in and out of buildings to look for the next block. This also means that any defeated puppets not tied up with tape are gonna move around and make your job a lot harder. Some of them are stuck in places where it's impossible to avoid a fight if you want to keep moving. The best part of all these puppets being in the same place at the same time is that every single one of them is talking. all the time. I like all the performances that the voice actors do, but they do a little too good of a job sounding like children's show hosts. Imagine being stuck in a room with 5 Barneys, it's just a lot. On our way to gather up blocks, we also get our second key. The first one was a blue circle, now we have an orange square. I put $500 on there being a green triangle. This is great in the moment, since it means you can access even more of the level, but then you realize the keys still take up inventory space. You better know when you're done with a key, because if you put it away prematurely, you're gonna need to run all the way back to a safe room and grab it out of storage if you want to use it again. The orange key doesn't open much outside of this set, so you're probably safe to leave it, but this is just one of the many things the game does to create anxiety. The scarcity of letter pages, health items, space in your briefcase all makes you tense over if you're going to be able to tackle whatever comes next. After getting all the blocks, we can swap out a letter for this crank, which lets us descend into the sewers. Well, there's no getting back up the way we came, but when Ricky comes to talk to us, he does let slip that there's an elevator we can use. Sneaking around past more puppets, and we get our hands on an even better weapon, the novelist. This bad boy is a double dose of hot typography to the face. And is also massive. This thing takes up so much case space and uses a much scarcer ammo type. If the pistol is only for when you absolutely have to use it, the shotgun is for when you're completely overwhelmed. If you can't find the ammo for it, it also might just be a good idea to leave it in the safe room and come back for it later. But then you might find the ammo when you're out hunting and have to run all the way back, so you really have to weigh your options. This area has a lot of narrow hallways that puppets can funnel you down with no room to breathe, which means you'll want to prioritize finding good paths past the enemies or taping them down in rooms you know you'll be going through a lot. We also get to meet our new friend, Ray the Maintenance Man. We share a bond only handyman can have. Let me reason with him. Nope, when we could have just talked out our issues, Ray instead hides in pipes and will pop out on occasion to smack you to the ground and leave you more vulnerable to puppet-based violence. Eventually, I grab the parts I need to repair this machine. That lets me do a neat time card puzzle. Punch in shapes that correlate to numbers in order to make a time card that matches what's on the appropriate clock. Getting past reveals the rest of the sewers that lead back into a deeper part of the studio. The way forward needs us to find breakers that can open up a sealed door that have been spread around the map by Hank. Never met a Hank I liked. Even if we have to trudge back through the same map we just got through, it's made up by how good the sound design is. The game's sound design is top-notch. Every creak and sputter of this dying studio adds to the sense of tension, and makes mundane areas nail-biters to get through. The enemies are especially well handled. Even if the noises they're making aren't the most bearable thing in the world, they instantly alert you if the room you're in is dangerous or not. I also get the chance to clean up my inventory a bit and have to make some tough decisions about ammo. You can only hold 26 letters in a clip because Gordon's never heard of punctuation, and if you have even 27, that makes a new separate stack. Now you have to make sure you don't have too much ammo, since it can weigh you down, and that ammo might be better served later as a treat for when you run low. We finally have the breakers, and after plugging them into the right spaces, we get access to some bolt cutters that let us get up to the elevator and go up to the theater floor. The theater floor has this naturally calming atmosphere to it, and is the only place so far where you have music outside of the save rooms, but something about it isn't trustworthy. Going into the actual theater, and I'm not going to be satisfied until I kill him myself. Up on the stage is this weird-looking okay, so I just maybe if I lump them. Gordon, just keep the keys in your mouth! Okay, finally got the space. Let's grab this and get If you manage to make it out with the mask, now this big green monster's running around and makes traversing the upper levels a nightmare. You have to guide it out of the way of the path you want to go, using yourself as bait. It's not just the upper levels they menace though, they can also randomly appear in different rooms, and the same bullheaded approach is needed if you want to get past them. The mask we got earlier is just part of a set, and we're gonna gonna need to collect a grand total of 4 to progress further, and these things are huge, so you're likely gonna need to part with items like keys, the wrench, maybe even the shotgun if you want to fit them all in at the same time. Breaking the trend and moving upwards now, and we make our way to a lounge room with a shooting gallery, board game, and combination safe. I work with the alphabet, not numbers. If it's not a password safe, I'm afraid I can't help. To get what I need from this place, a new key included, I need a game piece to play the board game with that can be found down in the soundstage. Bring that back up and we can start. This is a super cute side game that can be tricky to start out with, but once you put any amount of thought into how the game works, it's a neat distraction. Making him keel over dead means we win, and we get the red diamond key, and can access other parts of the studios, like the new parts of the soundstage, to find more masks and the place we're meant to put them all. In an unprecedented show of mercy, they even give you a safe room right next to the mask holders, so you don't have to lug them all the way through enemy-infested hallways. You get a bunch of dice, which are exactly what we need for the safe. Cracking that open nets us a tank of fluids that we can use for the generator that powers the next elevator. Seems like it should be a safe bet, but after grabbing the key to leave out the front door, this massive curtain monster blocks the way. This is our first boss fight, something the game rarely busts out, and it's not the hardest thing in the world, but as you start to shoot its eyes, you realize you're getting low on ammo. Accuracy is key, because every shot you miss is a chance for the boss to completely out-resource you. My kingdom for iron sights! Imagine not knowing there were iron sights in this game. With him dead, you're free to leave, but are gonna be low on resources and patience for these guys. Oh, look at you, alive and all that. Fresh air is ours once again, and we'll be getting even more of it as our next stop is to the hedge maze. I only need 7 more bullets to do something really funny. After stocking up in a safe house, we try to move forward, but not before Ricky tries to talk us out of our job again. He strikes a nerve with Gordon after mentioning the war. If only someone could tell me about this in the form of newspaper clippings! The hedge maze area comprises not just the maze itself, but a playground, greenhouse, and stable for the dogs. These new dog enemies are a bit different in how they'll bark at you when you get too close, and as long as you back it up, they'll stay docile. They also don't stay down like the rest of the puppets. After a little bit, they'll just get right back up, and they can't be taped up either, so that bark really does act as a good warning. Stay away. This whole section and the puzzles therein, though, are probably my least favorite part of the game. There are tons of puzzles on top of puzzles that require a lot of backtracking. All the way down to the sewers in some cases if you want to get the mixture you need to deglue the main elevator all the way up to the roof. It's the only time I got confused on the way forward. Normally the game's really good at that, but there's just a lot of times where I had no idea what I was doing. In our journey across the whole studio with our brand new green key, I do manage to find not just a side mission, but a whole new side to the game. You find the janitor monster trying to fix this pump, but his method of fixing things is the same as mine, and he just keeps hitting it. It needs a certain pump piece to function properly, and finding that hidden in the showers lets us fix it. Fixing that manages to pacify the janitor, and even though he has a straight shot at us, he doesn't do anything. Each one of the 4 major areas has a special enemy that only shows up there, and if you want, you can help them out with their problems. For the Big Bird Pearl back on the street set, you can help her out by finding her glasses, and for the dogs in the hedge maze, you can find dog food to feed them. Doing these actually pacifies the enemies altogether, so they won't bother you anymore. Doing these for the first 3 is nice, but pacifying the dogs is a massive boost since they'll start showing up all over the studio and make backtracking painful. But that doesn't cover the theater. To help out the big green monster, you have to find the 4 film reels hidden around the studio and play them in the projection booth. The first 3 don't do much, but the 4th one is war footage. The monster starts crying, so Gordon goes down to comfort them. It turns out that Gordon's a veteran of the very war that we're showing her, and that's why he flipped out on Ricky when he brought it up. It's a really sweet scene, and ties back into the larger story the game is trying to tell in its newspaper clippings, how the puppet studio has tried to instill good values into children, but the world became so stark and depressing that their message seemed antiquated and backwards. And what do you have to do to unlock the best ending in the game? You have to be friendly. What I love about this sort of story is, even if you don't read every single newspaper clipping, the story is still easy enough to intuit just from hints left in the environment or in dialogue. The clippings aren't there to be the only way to learn the story, they're meant to flesh it out and give you a better understanding. So, we've got the solution to get us up the elevator, but it only goes so high, so we're forced to go into this creepy arts and crafts room with out-of-tune piano music. Opening up, and we find this weird monster banging away on one. Each of the rooms behind him have a puzzle tied to it, with a few needing you to do them in a certain order, like making this fake key to swap with this real one in order to leave without triggering a trap. I know imagination is strong, Gordon, but it is cardboard. As far as I know, there is no way to die during this section, but that doesn't stop you from feeling like you're about to. This whole section keeps you on edge, as the same rule applies as usual, as long as there's music you're not in danger, but the fact you can't get away from it no matter what you do makes it a little unnerving. That's on top of the fact that this is not the calming music you're used to in the save rooms, and one of the monsters is the one playing it. The atmosphere as well is a lot brighter, which should make this place more inviting, but if anything, it makes it even less. Nothing feels natural. All this stuff being made out of cardboard means someone had to build it all, and if they're this dedicated to their vision, heaven help you if you're the guy who messes with it. It's not the most action-packed section, and there were a lot of parts that left me scratching my head, but this is a great change of pace before we get to the finale. We get to bang out the tunes with our new friend, and as a thank you, he helps us up to the roof with his elevator. No turning back from here as we make our way up to the antenna to shut the show down for good. After a long ladder climb up, Ricky tries to talk us out of it one last time, but imagine going through all that we have and giving up at the finish line. I have follow-through, gosh darn it! A lightning strike sends Gordon plummeting down dozens of stories and a further mile or so underground, which we walk off before getting a phone call. Ricky tells us the puppets down here saw what was going on outside and broke. Now they wander around down here attacking whoever gets close. Unfortunately, I count as both whoever and close. Running away and towards the emergency release has us tangle with this thing. If it's advice that doesn't come from a 90s Doom magazine, I don't take it, so shoot it until it dies. Most games like this don't really do climactic final bosses that well, and this isn't much of an exception. Getting out safe and sound, and on our way back to the truck after a job well done, Ricky makes us an offer. After going through everything we've been through, he thinks there's no one better to help run things. Yeah, you shot a lot of stuff tonight. Make a kids show. You have the choice on whether or not to help the show, or the choice made by f***ing monsters. And yes, with the good ending depending on if you helped out all those special enemies. In my case, Gordon gets fired from his maintenance job, but manages to get the show signed for a new season. And with that, my friendly neighborhood comes to an end. What a delight. This game is everything you could hope for in a horror game. Not just mascot horror or indie horror, just a rock-solid scary game. The frights aren't all based around jump scares, and rather the dread of losing progress. The environments are amazing, the character designs are all on point, it nails the atmosphere of a children's show perfectly, and there's nothing else like it. My friendly neighborhood has set a bar that I'd be shocked to see topped anytime soon. So, this is a bit different. Who's Lila is a lot more intense than the rest of these games. This is the sort of game that sticks with you long after you're done playing. Throwing this in anywhere other than the very end would be like intercutting Barney the dinosaur with The Exorcist. Not only is this game a lot heavier, it's also confusing as hell. Whose Lila has over 14 endings? That's right, 15. So if you play through this game 5 times, you've only gotten a third of the story. So here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go through my first 5 playthroughs and see what we can figure out. We've got 5 chances to make sense out of this. After that, the onus is on you to figure out more by buying and playing the game. Spoilers, it's my favorite horror game now, so don't be afraid to throw yourself in. So it's time for our first playthrough, and we get to meet our main character, William. He has trouble making expressions and needs our help to get a hold of them. Head off to the bathroom mirror and get our reps in. The game uses a system where whenever William enters a conversation or needs to emote, you can drag the individual bits of his face around to help him emote. This mechanic that the whole game is structured around gives you so much freedom for how you want to tackle things. Not only does it give you the freedom to react how you actually would in that situation, it also makes role-playing really easy. If you see William as a scared and lonely high schooler, you can play him like one. If you see him as the bug-eyed type, you can also play him like that. You can also toggle the difficulty to stop your face from moving on its own, which isn't just a way to make things a lot more stressful, but a lot creepier too. Armed with our variety of facial expressions to make it the bad guys, William starts the day with a double dose of terrifying phone calls. Our first call is from an anonymous source telling us to meet them down at the train station. And the other...
Please, I beg you, let me back in.
Must be a wrong number. We greet our building super on the way out, toss out the trash, and make our way to school. This game is mainly a point-and-click adventure with you traveling between a few key locations, namely school and some different apartments. We can only travel to locations we either know or can write the address of, and with our only option being to go to school or head to a train station to be murdered, I decide it's best to head to school. Making it inside, and Will's friends are waiting for him. They say he hasn't been to school in weeks, and their friend Tanya's gone missing. You have to fight against Will's face to do anything other than smile at the news, as they tell you she's been missing for days, and they know you're involved. Hey, that's not fair! I don't even know that I'm involved! The way Will talks during this section, and plenty more to come, is bizarre. Like he's only partially paying attention to whatever's happening, never too invested in the world around him, and instead just trying to get what he wants. He asks his friends where a girl named Martha is, and as soon as he gets the info he wants, he leaves in the middle of the conversation. Now, we could go upstairs to find Martha's classroom, but there's a door off to the side I feel like investigating first. It's the boiler room of the school, with an old janitor standing around inside. Mr. Frank talks to us and also calls us Lila, barreling towards the answer to question 1. He lets us into the boiler room and tells us to listen out for an ancient song to advance. Turns out what he means is if you want to find your way through the maze, you've got to walk through whichever door has the music playing the loudest when you stand next to it. There's no guaranteed way through the maze. Paths that work one time aren't always going to work the next. Keep your ears peeled for any sight of sounds that you can use to make your way through. While we spin our wheels, I want to gush about the style of this game. I like to call it Game Boy camera chic. Nothing looks quite like this game, and it gives it a sort of otherworldly feeling. While the left side of the screen is so sparsely detailed, the constant photorealistic rendering of William on the right gives you this uncanny feeling that you're being watched at all times. And he blinks sometimes, I hate it. By the end, you end up looping past this big boiler over and over again, growing dimmer and dimmer until soon... Oh, Jesus! We're now here! Wherever here is, at a massive spiral staircase, ascending higher and higher, closer and closer to... something. We find this machine. A massive hulking piece of metal that looks like a train engine. And then it starts talking to us. And we start talking back! It's calling us Lila, and we're calling it Will. We try to tell it to stop calling us, guess that means we know what the second call we got was on the broken phone. It offers us a wheel, and that's the end. Congratulations on getting ending number 10 of 15, Wheel of Fortune. Ho-ho, like the show. So, I may have accidentally gotten the absolute worst ending to get first, as now I'm more confused than I ever could have thought I could have been. So let's shoot for second most confusing next. Hey, another day, another dollar, am I right? The wheel's still there. Oh god, the wheel's still there. We get both phone calls again, telling us to meet somebody at the train station, and what we now know is whatever that thing was, and now that I've seen what no budget does to a school, I realized getting murdered might not be the worst alternative. We head to the train station we were told to go to and meet Strupnev. He seems to have history with Will, as they both know Father Lawrence, the guy who we were told died over the phone by, presumably him. In the middle of our talk, he asks us if Lila is still talking to us, since she stopped talking to him. We try to throw on our best confident face, but Strupnev isn't buying it. Things get deathly serious after that, and we escape into the one spot we're sure to be safe in, like a bomb shelter or something, except Strupnev finds us. And this section, trying to get away from Strupnev, this really got to me. And I am a brave man. The whole setup for this section and what he's saying, coupled with the sounds he makes when he spots you, got my heart racing. It didn't matter if it was less than 3/4 of the screen, I was still on edge for this entire bit. If you want to escape Strupnev, you need to make a break for the door in whatever room you're in. Getting caught sends you back to the start, and you have to do this 3 times before you get to the end. It can be frustrating at times, especially with the perspective of the screen making it hard to tell where certain things are and what will block his vision, but the tension it creates doesn't go away no matter how many times I had to do this section. While I struggled for a while on the first and second rooms, I got the final room on my first try. Give me a couple tries and I'll ace any life or death situation. While we try to get to wherever we're trying to go, Strupnev nearly gets us, when all of a sudden... Either every ending in this game involves the boiler room, or I have the worst batting average in baseball today. This nets us the ending The Empress, but specifically reversed. This inverted card symbolizes insecurity, negligence, and a lack of progression. They don't like mentioning the boiler. Another day, another trip to hell! Okay, so this time around, I plan on getting an ending where at least part of it ends up making sense. We head back to class to talk to our friends again, which gives us the idea to go upstairs and find Martha. We can't find her, but we do manage to find her pads. Gross, William. More important than menstruation is her apartment keys, which, along with her apartment number, is all Will wanted to know. So it's time to go chat with Martha personally. We find her up on the roof, and Will suddenly gets incredibly violent looking as he asks her if she's been talking to the police. Martha is clearly terrified of this guy, but she gets a reprieve when Mike shows up. This is Tanya's boyfriend, and he has a sneaking suspicion that you have something to do with her disappearance. What can I say? I have that effect on people. They see me and think, he's probably the last thing some people have seen. I said this game was really good for letting you roleplay, but you're not playing as a blank slate. You're playing as William. There's an entire story that unraveled before you even got here, and it's stuff you can't affect anymore. You have to live with the choices that Will made before you even got here. The conversation quickly drifts away, since as soon as Michael starts getting tough with us, we shrink away and try to look less threatening so he doesn't kick the crap out of us. Eventually, though, Will starts biting back and almost tries goading Mike into attacking him. He begins mocking Mike's threats, and that ends up really well. He kicked my balls until I threw up and passed out. Which means he left. Stupid idiot. All according to plan. Our next goal is clear. Make it to Martha's apartment. My efforts are thwarted, though, as I try to get past this tenant at the front door. He's keen on making sure no crazy murderers get into the apartment. Bad news for me. No matter what expression I pull out of my hat, he doesn't seem to buy it. We need to pull out the hyper combo finish of anger and even more anger to get him off our tail. He does call the police after we threaten to kill him, though, so the rest of our night just got a lot harder. If being threatened to be killed is the worst thing that happens to you tonight, consider yourself lucky. The palette goes a deep red as we climb the stairs to Martha's apartment. Using the keys, we let ourselves in and hide in her closet to wait for her to get back. While we wait, we can observe things like a blue velvet movie poster on her wall, her panties hanging out to dry, and her unmade bed. Eventually, though, Martha comes back. After that, Will just takes the bus home and seems none the worse for wear. A bit shell-shocked at first, but his expression eventually goes back to normal. On the way back, though, we get taken in for questioning by the police. Your guess is as good as mine when it comes to which of the crimes I've committed today they're questioning me about. Officer Hutchins comes in to talk with us, and from this point, what we do here is the nexus point to a ton of different endings and revelations. This bar here represents your confidence during the interrogation, and the more confident or nervous expressions you give, the higher and lower it goes. A few confident nostril flares keep us in the good graces of Johnny Law. We learn that Tanya and Will met and possibly hooked up at a party not too long ago, and that Mike blew up at them. Will insists they never did anything funny, but I don't even trust him about his name anymore. We show off the wounds that Mike gave us earlier before Officer Hutchins leaves and a new officer comes in. Hope we get that old good cop, better cop routine. Fisher plays hardball with us and drops a bombshell. They found a dead body outside our apartment. The conversation in Will's head gets more and more confusing, as on the outside, he genuinely doesn't seem to know what's happening when Fisher asks him questions. But when it turns to the internal dialogue, things get really, really strange when you say, "And you made sure William wore gloves." Just as we're about to confess to the murder, it cuts to Tanya and Will in bed together, and Will calls her Lila. The cops get a call about a murder in an apartment building, and the game ends, credits and all. Now, this should feel at least a little bit more satisfying, but I have no idea what happened. Why did Will kill Martha? Did Will actually kill Tanya? What was in the trash bag that we take out at the beginning of every day? Who's Lila? Another day, another get me out of here! So, the next ending is special. We're going to get what might be the most game-changing ending of them all. And to start, we're going to visit the burned-down dorm that Father Lawrence died in. We got the address all the way back in the Empress ending, and it's time to investigate. After smooth talking our way past a cop, we head up to one of the rooms and take a seat. There, we find this sigil that we can stare at. Turning around has us finding a man standing in the middle of a river, and interacting with him nets us the ensuing chat with this happens in an instant. He reads our mind and instantly knows what we want. He calls us a vessel for his kind, and that if we want to be rid of it, he'll help us at no cost. The way he plans on helping us is by giving us access to his servant, the daemon. He says that the daemon is uploaded to this reality independently, and that we'll have to follow his link to find his location. Then he gives us an actual link. This is a link to the game's Steam page, and it leads you to the free DLC for the game, which is the Daemon. What is he? Well, to interact with him, we have to first download the DLC, then press the Summon to Desktop button on the main menu. That creates an icon on your computer's desktop to open the Daemon application. That opens this window. In addition to the horrifying face, it also comes with a creepy drone that persists through the whole game, and now accompanies the game's own horrible drones. Lawrence. Now, whenever the daemon icon pops up on the screen, when you interact with an object he's interested in, he'll talk to you. This opens so many different paths to endings you would have never been able to find out otherwise, including our last one. We're heading back to the burned down dorm for this one, but instead of going into the room where we found the daemon, we're going one over and listening to the daemon for a phone number. By dialing that in, we're able to call Father Lawrence. It's not clear if he's alive or dead, but he says that he's lost in some sort of black abyss. He starts to talk about Lila and how sorry he is for dragging us all into this. If we want to find out how to get rid of Lila permanently, we have to go to his computer in the other room and enter the code 226. I don't know if this is the code every time. I'm fairly certain it changes with each playthrough, so the people who are using this video as a cheat guide, suck it. We use the code to get in, but once we do, it's protected by another password. So, where's the second password? What, you think I'm gonna tell you? The document tells us that once Lila's been released, it's impossible to get control back. If Will wants to get rid of Lila once and for all, he has to kill all potential hosts for her, and anybody who's heard of her could be a potential host. With a brand new murder plan set into motion, we go out to set it into motion, only to run headfirst into a brick wall. And there it is. All 5 endings of Who's Lila. If you've managed to glean a single thing from any of this, you're a better man than me, cause it took me up until the very last ending to uncover everything the game was trying to say, and I'm sure I still missed loads. So, the movie Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me is one of the most lauded and beloved cult classic films from director David Lynch. Despite its strong following, though, it was panned upon initial release for being so dense and hard to follow that by the end, people had no idea what they had just seen. Who's Lila is like 5 consecutive Fire Walk With Me's to the face. This is a type of horror that you think about well after the game's shut down. And that's not just because I'm only 50% sure the game isn't listening to me right now. It's one of the most unique horror games ever made, and not enough can be said to recommend it. You're going to find some insanely weird stuff in your time playing. And I can't wait for more people to try it out. Say hi to William for me. Here's that scary picture I promised.